Alright, y'all, so we're gonna go ahead and get started on cleaning up this picture. So I want you guys to get rid of this fence right here in the foreground, these electric poles and wires, as well as the ones in the back over here. So let's go ahead and get started. Ideally, you want to always duplicate your background layer so that you always have something to go back to. So you can do that by right-clicking and hitting duplicate layer. So we have something like this. All right, so all of the tools that we're going to be using are going to be within these two here, plus the lasso tool. You want to refrain from using the spot healing brush tool on anything that has texture like the grass, because this is more for like skin or smoothing out certain spots. It can work for this top section here since the sky is pretty soft. And don't click on this one, but the healing brush tool, I'll show you how to use that in a minute. All right, so let's get started with the lasso tool. If you have complicated sections like this pole right here that goes up into the sky and into the grass, you want to have Photoshop do like 90% of the work for you, and then you go back and clean up whatever needs to be cleaned up. But let's start with, I was going to start with this one, but no, let's start with the smaller one. So just roughly draw a circle around this pole right here till you see marching ants. And nowadays you just right click on the selection here and you want to look for content aware fill. You'll notice on this side it's showing you your original image. Anything that's in green, Photoshop is using to sample. And on the preview box, it's showing you how it's going to look if you would like to apply these changes. If you're not seeing any changes, check your settings over here, your properties, and make sure auto is selected. If you hit auto and it's still not working, it might be the wrong layer you're in, but I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And it actually went into a new layer of its own, so I'm going to undo that really quick and try it one more time because I don't want its own layer. So where it says output setting to new layer, you can just leave it at current layer and hit OK. Perfect, so now it's in the original layer. I'm going to hit deselect or Command D. And this is the cleanup I'm talking about. It's not too bad because it did majority of the work for us. Let's go ahead and repeat the same thing on this bigger pole right here. All right, right click, content aware fill. That's pretty decent too. You'll see that this looks a little blurry, but no biggie, we can clean that up. Right, deselect. So let's start with these cables up at the top. You can use the spot healing brush tool since the sky is clear, but if you had clouds or such, you would want to try to refrain from using this one. I'm going to make sure that I have a soft brush, that the edges are soft. So the hardness is down to 0%. I'm going to scale this down a bit. And you might have to go over a certain part a couple times. Okay. I'm gonna try it on this cable here and hope for the best with this tool. Okay, not too shabby. Did a decent job. If you zoom in, you can tell that this happened over here, but I don't think anybody can tell. So that takes care of this section over here. Now for this one, you want to go ahead and either use the clone stamp tool or the healing brush tool. I'll start with the clone stamp, so since they work similarly. So with the clone stamp, you want to hold the Alt Option key, and you'll notice that when you do that, your cursor changes to this kind of target looking icon. You're basically telling Photoshop where you want to sample pixels from. So if you let go of Alt, it goes back to the brush, but I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm going to just regular click once in this area right here. Now when I hover over to this cable section, and I'll enlarge my brush, you'll see that you have a grass texture around your brush. So it's showing you a preview. And when you start brushing or painting to get rid of that cable, you can see a little arrow or a little cross where Photoshop is sampling pixels from. So if you, I'll show you an example here. Let's say I want to soften this part or add texture, right? Because it softened it. Alt Option to sample these pixels over here, or let's say over here. If you're painting and you accidentally start getting this hill, right? Because it's sampling from over here, you'll see the little cross is sampling that hill. So if that happens, you're getting a texture you don't want, just hold Alt Option again to sample pixels from a different area. But that's something to be mindful, because sometimes we don't realize that we are copying, like for example, these two yellow flowers. If you're not careful, you'll see them repeating all around your picture. So holding Alt Option to sample new areas of the picture might make it look more natural. So that's an example of sampling flowers that I don't want. So I'm going to sample from up here now. But I actually got rid of them. So these, I think we are going to have to decide to either keep them or get rid of them altogether so that it looks more natural. Just copy the cable over here. For this section, you're going to bounce back between both of these areas. So and don't be afraid to Command Z to undo something that you don't like the way it looks. But that's how you would take care of this fence part over here. And it does take some time to make it look as natural as possible. Remember, the whole point of Photoshop is that you cannot tell that this was manipulated at all, if you're good at your job at least. Sample some tall grass. And some of this at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to press pause really quick as I clear this one up. Okay, so I went ahead and cleared out this area here now. I'm going to zoom in and just make sure that I left no cables behind. And that is the clone stamp tool, y'all. So I said that the healing brush tool works the same, and it does. So if I switch over to that one, healing brush tool, it's the third one. You hold Alt Option as well to sample pixels, and then you paint an area. So as you can see, I still have the grass texture. So let's say I wanted to get rid of this dot. I can sample this area here and it'll cover up that dot. For these sections at the top, I'm sampling up here and I'm just painting to get rid of those bars right there. When you get closer to the edge, just be very careful, because if you do that, it'll make it blurry here. So to avoid that, make sure that you take the hardness, oh, it is all the way up. Okay, so for that one, the clone stamp tool would probably be a lot better. We're going to take the hardness up, and I'm going to sample, hold Alt Option to sample this area here. And now I can get rid of this section right here. So that's with the hardness all the way up to 100%, so the edges look like this instead of soft. I'll show you why for certain areas you want a hard edge over a soft one. So if I were to switch over to soft, let's say I want to get rid of this tree here, and I'm sampling this area here, it looks blurry almost. So that's the only difference between wanting to cover some pretty solid edges. You want to make sure that you have it set to 100% hardness for some of these. I will try this tool here. Oh. And it's the healing brush tool. I just got to resample from over here. And then when I get closer to this section, I will use a different tool. This cow might have to go though, y'all. So Alt Option here, make my brush bigger. Okay. We have some of these coming across too, but I'm gonna try my spot healing one, that's the top one, and see if it gets rid of this. It did, awesome, okay. And I'm gonna try this one now for this edge. Again, it's all about kind of seeing what tools work best for certain areas. Always zoom out to make sure that everything's looking as natural as possible. We have some of these cable lines happening over here, so right. No, that one's too obvious, so it's going to need healing brush. We sample some trees for back here. And that's it, y'all. So I'll have you zoom in and clean up some things. Maybe there's a cow that was cut in half. I would just remove it completely if you have lost some of it, but once you're done, you're just going to do File, Save As, rename this to Fields, leave it as a PSD file, and that's what you will submit.